What's up, everyone? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it is time to give you the final AP Top 25 poll and also my thoughts on the final AP Top 25 poll. The 2022-2023 college football season is complete. We have now completed the whole college football season. Now we're heading into the off season. But basically, this is the final top 25 before we get into the off season. So just want to get my thoughts on it. This AP poll just came out last night, of course, after the national championship and, between Georgia and TCU. We'll talk about that game later on. And then tomorrow I'll pretty much give you the way too early AP top 25 poll heading into the 2023 season. But it's way too early for it tomorrow. But, I'll give you the video anyways tomorrow and give you my thoughts on it purposely. So it's how it's going to do it in this video. So pretty much let's get right into it here with my final AP Top 25 poll. These are just based off of all those bowl games that happened and also the national championship and semifinal matchups. So let's just jump right into it. We'll start off from the bottom and work our way to the top. Number 25 is Texas. Texas finishes 8-5 in 2022. Lost the bowl game to Washington in the last game of their season. Yeah, that's kind of a tough loss heading into 2023, but there's pretty much high expectations for this Texas team heading into 2023. Of course, you got Arch Manning coming over at quarterback, and, Texas could be a real big threat next year for the Big 12, but overall, a pretty good season after a 5-7 season from a year ago. So Texas, though, 8-5 is an okay record, but it's just not, not too bad for them. At least they got 8 wins there in their second year under their head coach. Fresno State, they finished 10-4, a group of 5 team that was pretty good this year overall, and they had a nice finish to the season at a 10-4 record. So Fresno State, like I said, I don't really study the group of 5 teams that much, but I'm starting to get used to the group of 5 teams a little bit. But Fresno State, they're number 24 here. South Carolina finishes at 8-5 also. Lost by 7 in their bowl game to Notre Dame. What a matchup that was. And I had it on my top 10 bowl games heading into the 2022/23 bowl season. And that's how exactly I predicted it. South Carolina and Notre Dame is going to be a top 10 matchup. And South Carolina, though, finishes 8-5. It would have been probably good if they finished 9-4, but I think South Carolina has a really good shot to maybe, have a great season next year. Maybe it's not going to be 9 wins, though. Maybe not 10 wins, but South Carolina could still pick up some wins anyway. But they finished 8-5 in 2022, so pretty good record for them. And I got their record exactly how I predicted it as well. So yeah, I'm really glad that South Carolina had a pretty good year. This is a team that, pretty much everybody thought they were not going to win 8 games, maybe 9 games, maybe 7 or something like that. But South Carolina, ending out the year with 2 top 10 wins and then a heartbreaker to Notre Dame in their last game. But South Carolina looks to have some high expectations heading into next year. They lose Spencer Rattler. That's not really a big loss for them, so we'll see who their new quarterback will be next season. Pittsburgh, they're at number 22. They finish out 9-4. Basically losing to UCLA. I think that's who the team they played against, so if I'm wrong, just let me know down in the comments below. But Pittsburgh, this is a team that I picked to finish second in the Coastal Division, but they finished 9-4 in the season, and have high expectations maybe for next year. But this was a Pittsburgh team that we knew was going to kind of struggle at the quarterback position, of course, with Kenny Pickett gone. But Pittsburgh kind of finished out pretty strong, and maybe they win the Coastal Division next year. And I think that division next year is going to be pretty wide open between Pittsburgh, Miami, and another team like North Carolina. So we'll see how that division goes next year. UCLA, just talked about them. I think they were the team that beat Pittsburgh in their bowl game. UCLA had a pretty good season. They had a chance to maybe win the Pac-12, but they finished out 9-4. Overall in the season. Yeah, UCLA had a pretty good season. The Pac-12 was pretty much wide open throughout the whole year, but I like what this UCLA team is doing. And like I said, they had the easiest schedule on all college football this year, and maybe they have a really good shot next year to maybe win the Pac-12. So pretty much, I don't really know what to talk about with all these teams because it is the end of the season. We just really talk about what their momentum will be like for next year. So Now let's go to 16 through 20. We got Mississippi State at number 20, defeated Illinois in their bowl game to finish out 9-4. And of course, that was an emotional win for Mississippi State. And I think Mississippi State has high expectations heading into next year as well. They could lose Will Rogers, though, at quarterback, which would be a pretty big loss for them. But yeah, overall, Mississippi State had a pretty good season, finishing out 9-4. Of course, they lost their head coach, but, overall, Mississippi State finished out that game for him. And, that was just an emotional win for this Mississippi State team, and they do get the win there at the end of the season. So, congratulations to Mississippi State on getting the win. Troy, the top team out of the Sun Belt, they finish out 12-2. They're not the best Group of 5 team in the country, but they are really close. And they played against UTSA. That was pretty much the first bowl game that kicked off, the bowl season. And it was on my top 10, list for bowl games. And it ended up being a bowl game that really came down to the wire. But Troy with a pretty good season, finishing out 12-2. One of the best teams in the Sun Belt, besides Appalachian State perhaps. But Troy, heading into next year, I think they could be pretty good. A Group of 5 team that, you don't want to sleep on every now and then if you play them in a non-conference matchup. Notre Dame at number 18, they finished out 9-4, and they're under their first-year head coach. Remember, they got off to an 0-2 start, but this team started to pick up some wins in the top 25 and also some top 25 wins as well. And Notre Dame has high expectations heading into next year. Of course, their quarterback is transferring away, but that doesn't really matter. They get Sam Hartman from Wake Forest, and that's going to be a big expectation for this Notre Dame team. You got a veteran quarterback that's had experience at Wake Forest, and he's going to really help out this Notre Dame team out. So maybe Notre Dame has a really big shot next year to be a playoff contender. I mean, it's really too early to tell, though, because it's still we're now in the early in the off season as well. So Oregon State at number 17, they finished out 10-3. Of course, beating Florida in their bowl game by pretty much a big margin. I think they won that game like by 27 points or somewhere. And Oregon State, heading into next year, they got a transfer coming in. That's DJ Ogilvy coming over from Clemson. I know the transfer portal has been huge already for some of these quarterbacks. Some of these transfers are coming over from really good programs. Some of them are just coming from a Group of 5 program, but Oregon State has a good quarterback coming in DJ Ogilvy. I know he was inconsistent at Clemson, but maybe he has a pretty good year down there at Oregon State. We'll just see how it goes for him next season. Oregon State should be a team that you don't want to sleep on next year. So, and then LSU comes in at number 16, dominated against Purdue in their bowl game. LSU had a pretty good season under first-year head coach Brian Kelly. 10-4 season, and the good thing about this LSU team this year is that they beat some good top 25 teams like at Ole Miss, for example, also Alabama. That was probably the biggest win of the season for LSU. Yes, they didn't win the SEC championship, but LSU pretty much beat Purdue pretty badly. And this team gets 10 wins in Brian Kelly's first year. So, yeah, it was a really good season for this LSU team. High expectations, I believe, for this LSU team heading into next year. If Jaden Daniels comes back, he's going to be pretty much a good quarterback for them. So LSU, maybe a playoff contender next year. Maybe you don't want to sleep on them just a little bit. So that's from 16 through 20. We go now to 11 through 15. We got Oregon finishing out 10-3 under their first-year head coach. And the good news about this Oregon team is that Bo Nix is coming back for another year. I think he's probably now in his 6th year under college football. And, going back to that first game in the early year for Oregon against Georgia, they picked up some wins, and then they, really started to fall apart at the end of the year. But they ended up winning their bowl game in a close one against North Carolina. That game was really close down the stretch, but at the end of the day, Oregon came out on top and ended up winning 10 games under their first-year head coach. I think this Oregon team could be a playoff contender coming up this year. I mean, you look at Bo Nix, the return of him helps them out. And, maybe they can recruit pretty well. The recruiting class is going pretty good for some of these teams. Oregon, obviously, in that conversation as well, maybe for a playoff spot next year. Kansas State finishes at 10-4. They are at number 14. Tough loss to Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. I mean, they were up I think they were up 10-0 in that game from the start. And then, Alabama started to pull away in that game. Bryce Young played his last game as an Alabama quarterback. Kansas State, though, maybe they have a really good year next season and they can probably get back to, winning ways again. But, 10-4, solid season. The good news about this Kansas State team is that, they won the Big 12 championship this year. That really all that matters. And Kansas State pretty much will have high expectations probably for next year. Clemson finishes at number 13, 11-3 overall in the season. Yeah, they had a pretty tough outing in that game against Tennessee in the Orange Bowl. Special teams is a big problem for them. And, of course, they got that freshman quarterback they started. It was just a little bit new for him. Maybe next year they can really start to turn things around. With DJ Ogilvy now gone, they got a new quarterback in their rise. But they got a freshman quarterback coming in, perhaps, that could help them out as well. So Clemson, maybe there will be a playoff contender next year. We don't really know, though. We've seen the inconsistency of this Clemson team now for the last 2 seasons. It's just not been really good for Dabo Swinney's team. They've been losing more than, 1 game on the year. So Clemson trying to turn things around for 2023. We'll see how that goes. USC at number 12, losing their bowl game to Tulane. That was a great game there at the end of the day. We know the good thing about this USC team is that they had a pretty good shot to win the Pac-12 this year. They also had a chance to go to the college football playoff, but at least Caleb Williams did what he did. He won the Heisman Trophy. Pretty much a top quarterback heading into next year once again. And there's a good chance that he could probably win back-to-back Heisman trophies, so you never know. This USC team should be pretty good this year. And the defense could get better as well. That was the biggest issue for this USC team this year. We knew the defense wouldn't be as talented as they were, but, USC finishes 11-3 on the season. Florida State at number 11. What a turnaround they had this year under Mike Norvell. 10-3 overall record. This team, ended up winning their bowl game as well. So, yeah, Florida State with a great turnaround this year. They have high expectations heading into next year. We'll look at those way too early top 25s poll tomorrow and see where they would rank them at. So, but Florida State, what a great turnaround they had under Mike Norvell. This is a team that, we thought Mike Norvell would be on the hot seat this year. But Florida State turned it around. And I think they have a pretty good shot to be really good next year. It just comes down to Mike Norvell and that coaching staff, but they did pretty good this year. All right, 6 through 10 now. The Utah Utes come in here at number 10, losing a heartbreaker to Penn State in the Rose Bowl. Of course, Cam Rising went down in that game, and that kind of hurt them down the stretch. But Utah, good news is you get Cameron Rising back at quarterback next year. That's a huge return for this Utah team. We thought Cam Rising would probably enter the transfer portal, enter the NFL draft, but, Cam Rising is coming back for another year, so Utah gets their quarterback back. And also, I think Utah could be a legitimate playoff contender next year because of Cam Rising returning, and that could be really huge for this Utah team heading into 2023. Tulane finishes at number 9, one of the best group of 5 teams this season. They won the American Championship game as well, and, they finished out 12-2. And, of course, that big win against USC in the Cotton Bowl really have helped them out. Now they're heading into 2023, possibly could win back-to-back American Championships. Tulane could have probably made the playoff if they would have played maybe some really good teams there. But I think, the win against USC really helps them out heading into next year. Washington comes in at number 8. Another team that, had a really big turnaround this year. This is a team that went 4-8 last year, and also they beat Texas in their bowl game. So, yeah, Washington had a pretty good year. They had a chance to win the Pac-12, but, they finished out 11-2. Like I said, this is a team that went 4-8 last year, and now they're heading into 2023, maybe with high expectations for the Pac-12. And I think the Pac-12 is pretty much wide open, full of playoff contenders. Pretty much I'm going to do those way too early playoff teams as well, like my way too early college football playoff contenders heading into next year as well. Penn State at number 7. And just like I mentioned with Utah, this is the team that beat Utah in the Rose Bowl. Penn State had a pretty good year, ended out their season with a big old winning streak against Utah, and that was, that was a really good season for Penn State. Sean Clifford coming in, we knew that, it was going to come down to him and that offense, but yeah, Penn State, we didn't think they would be really this talented this year, and, winning the Rose Bowl is a pretty good accomplishment for this Penn State team. And after that Ohio State game, they started to go on a winning streak, and like I mentioned, this was the best 10-2 type team heading into bowl season. So Penn State finishes out 11-2 in 2023. high expectations maybe for this Penn State team next season. Tennessee finishes at number 6 in the AP poll. They finished out also 11-2, just like I mentioned with Clemson. The Tennessee defense played pretty well in that game. That was probably the best, game I've seen Tennessee's defense played all year long. And of course, Tennessee, the quarterback situation with Joe Milton. Joe Milton played pretty well. I mean, threw some good throws down the field. Maybe he returns next season, and maybe he battles for that starting job. But Tennessee's got a freshman quarterback coming in. I believe he's from California. So yeah, once again, high expectations for this Tennessee team heading into next season. So Tennessee with a pretty good overall record in 2022. So now let's head to the top 5 now. Alabama at number 5 finishes 11-2, coming off that Sugar Bowl win against Kansas State. So now Alabama loses Bryce Young and Will Anderson in the NFL draft. What's it going to be like for Alabama next year? I mean, are they going to have a new quarterback that can, lead them to the national championship, and also some running backs that can get it going? Like I said, I think it's going to really come down to that offensive line for Alabama. If they can just block for their running backs and also give their quarterbacks plenty of time to throw in the pocket, Alabama's going to be a good team, and I think they will be a really good team next year. The recruiting class is looking good for Alabama. Of course, they got maybe the number 1 recruiting class as of right now. National Signing Day will be on February the 1st, so, I mean, we're still waiting to see who will finish out as number 1 in that recruiting class. So Alabama, I'm expecting them to be a college football playoff team next season, maybe a contender as well. Ohio State at number 4. This is another team that I kind of expected, to be a playoff contender next year. We don't really know the status yet of C.J. Stroud. This is a team that finishes out 11-2. Of course, they lost to Georgia in the semifinal matchup, but it was a good season for Ohio State. In the end, though, they made the college football playoff. That's the only good thing about this team. I know they lost to Michigan as well, but, this is a good season for Ohio State. I think they have something to be proud of. C.J. Stroud was a Heisman finalist, and now they're heading into 2023, I believe, with high expectations. If C.J. Stroud comes back for next year, I mean, Ohio State has a really big shot to be a playoff contender heading into this season, or I should say it's really early in the year, but it should be a tremendous season for Ohio State heading into the next year. Michigan at number 3, they finish out at 13-1. This is a team that lost to TCU in the college football playoff semifinal. Michigan, there's some things going on right now with that program. There's been some investigation going on with Jim Harbaugh. I mean, could get him fired, but, I don't really see him being fired at all. But, this Michigan team had a pretty good year. I think the injury to Blake Corum kind of killed him. I mean, they had a chance to maybe run the football pretty well against this TCU team if Blake Corum played in that game. But Michigan finishes out 13-1. They won the Big Ten championship in the end. They've done that for back-to-back years now, and they're starting to look like, a powerhouse program as well in the Big Ten Conference. And then TCU finishes at number 2, and then Georgia comes in at number 1. TCU finishes out 13-2, Georgia 15-0, an undefeated perfect regular season. Let's talk about the national championship game from last night. Of course, Georgia ended up winning this one by a blowout. I just did not expect Georgia to hammer TCU in this game. I knew going into this game that TCU would be, people were kind of not really matching TCU up with Georgia pretty well. And, I kind of regret my prediction there because I did predict TCU to beat Georgia in the national championship. But, I thought they would at least have a really good shot. I really thought they would in a close game. But in the end of the day, Georgia was the dominant team all year long. And, we just did not sleep on them for the whole way. But it was a good season. TCU has something to be proud of. Max Duggan, really good story for him, having heart surgery and leading this team to the national championship game. So what is TCU going to look like next year? I mean, Max Duggan's going to be gone. Maybe Quentin Johnson's going to be gone. And I think they're going to lose pretty much a lot of production that they had this year from the national championship. But like I said, it's really early in the year. It's really hard to tell what they're going to happen in the year so far. And then Georgia at number 1. This was the most dominant team in all of college football this year. 15-0, undefeated regular season, winning back-to-back national championships. Stetson Bennett now could be gone heading into the NFL draft. He's led this team to back-to-back national championships now. But, yeah, congratulations to the Georgia Bulldogs on a really good season, and they really have high expectations in heading into 2023. Who will be their new quarterback, though? That's going to be the question, but they got a good recruiting class coming in, so really nothing to worry about for this Georgia team heading into this to next season. And they're pretty much going to be the favorites to win the national championship once again this season as well, so we'll see how that plays out. But that's the top 25, the final top 25 of the 2022 to 23 college football season. And again, subscribe to this channel if you are new. And thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.